So how do we evaluate speaking? It's an important question, and it's going to become more important. As Common Core state standards force us to have new assessments, those assessments are going to have us look at speaking and evaluate speaking. We'll need to come up with some logical, consistent way to evaluate student speaking. It starts with this. Understand that there are two distinct parts: building a speech and performing a speech. Intuitively, we know this. We know that the newscaster is reading off of a teleprompter and someone else wrote the words. We know that the actor is performing lines and somebody else wrote the lines. So we know that they're two different things. But as speakers, we have to do both of them. And this is true whether it's one-on-one communication, small group communication, or large group. By building a speech, I'm referring to everything we do before we open our mouths. By performing a speech, I'm referring to what we do as we are speaking. And these are two very different skill sets. Some people are very good at building a speech and not so good at performing it. Other people are natural performers but have nothing of value to say. But we need to do both of these as we construct a speech. It's significant for evaluation purposes that we give them equal weight. If you overweight building a speech, it's as if you've given a written prompt and then someone just reads it out loud. If you overweight performing a speech, you run the risk of valuing style over substance. So as you evaluate any speech, make sure that you evaluate fairly and give each part its share. Let's look back at the PD360 idea of what it takes to be a great speaker. If I color code it, you'll note that they are very heavily oriented toward performing a speech. What do you worry about before you speak? Word choice and grammar. That's part of building the speech. However, if that's all you worried about, you would build a very poor speech. Nothing about content, engaging and important information, nothing about organization, nothing about visual aids. If all you thought about was word choice and grammar, you would build a very poor speech. The blue letters indicate things that are performance aspects. Articulation, volume, eye contact, body movement, presence. These are things you think about as you are performing. So this is heavily weighted toward the performance side, and even so, as we talked about in the last video, seriously flawed. Here's a book report I got from a teacher that I worked with. And it's pretty typical of what's out there. It mixes up a bunch of different things. Notice it scores components complete and on time. These are study skills. They shouldn't be in a speech rubric. An opening and satisfying conclusion, part of building a speech. Speak loudly, clearly, and slowly, part of performing a speech. Make eye contact, performance. The characters creatively shown, back to building a speech. Historical facts, motivation, probably things you put in the building a speech. Expression perhaps is a performance thing if we're talking about facial expression or vocal expression. Preparation and practice are evident. That you probably never know. Some kids get nervous even though they've practiced a lot. Other kids are natural presenters. Organized and within the time limit. Again, those are building a speech. Keep the audience engaged. Well, I'm not sure that's probably building a speech. Did you write it well enough to keep the audience engaged? Costume and props, building a speech. So here's a typical score sheet, and it has some of both. It has some components of building a speech jumbled in with performing a speech. Better, break it out. Talk about the things that it takes to build the speech. I would have to think about the audience. I would have to have content. I would have to organize it. I would have to have some visual aids. I would adjust my appearance, in this case a costume, all before I ever open my mouth. And then as I am performing, I would probably want to score these skills. Because poise, voice, life, eye contact, gestures, and speed are what you need as you are performing. And if you have those handled, you will have a great performance. More is found at pvlegs.com, or in the book Well Spoken, Teaching Speaking to All Students.